America's largest home builder just launched a massive recession warning volley towards the U.S. economy.
America is heading into a major recession.
Do you guys know what the people are not telling you about? We're in a recession.
Bankruptcies in the United States are accelerating at their fastest pace that we've seen in 15 years.
The U.S. economy is so bad right now that there is a laundry list of stores and retailers that are closing stores this year.
Claire's went bankrupt earlier this year, and it announced it would be closing 700 stores.
I appeared on News Nation this morning to talk about the overwhelming increase in farmer bankruptcies this year in the United States of America.
Everlane is at serious risk of filing for bankruptcy in 2025.
Chipotle is filing for bankruptcy, and all y'all acting surprised.
The office sharing company WeWork has filed for bankruptcy protection.
Millions of people are about to lose their jobs, they're about to lose their homes, they're going to lose everything they have.
The mother of all layoffs has arrived.
Microsoft has now canceled the Xbox games after it's laid off more than 15,000 people.
It should be criminal how low the pay has gotten due to mass layoffs.
Non-traditional economic indicator that is sounding an alarm, and it's absolutely heart-wrenching. Shelters across the U.S. are reporting a surge in surrenders with financial hardship as the primary driver.
Auto loan delinquency rates are officially at an all-time high.
If millions of families are going into debt just to eat,
consumer debt is out of control and people cannot pay their credit cards.
Now, here's the scary part. Delinquency is rising fastest outside of mortgages. People usually protect the roof over their head until the very end, right? It's typically the last debt that people will go delinquent on.
Millions of people will be struggling. Many will go homeless. Many will go without food.
Kids are going to be food insecure. We are looking at an economic tsunami.
Welcome to Real Talk, a channel dedicated to capturing the raw, unfiltered perspectives from everyday people. No commentary, no interruptions, just real people sharing their frustrations and opinion about the economy. My goal is simple: provide a space where you can hear authentic rants, opinions, and stories from all walks of life. So make sure to like and subscribe and enjoy the rest of the video.
America's largest home builder just launched a massive recession warning volley towards the U.S. economy. D.R. Horton, they're reporting a massive collapse in sales, and they're cutting their 2025 revenue forecast on weak demand for homes. Now, this is a huge deal, everyone, because D.R. Horton is the #1 home builder in America. They deliver over 80,000 homes a year, and they're telling you that the market is weakening, and I think this is yet another signal of how home prices will drop in America in 2025. We're going to see continued declines in values in about half the country as the year goes on. In fact, you can already see these declines occurring in the states in blue on this map from Reventure app. These are the areas where month-over-month price growth is now in contraction. And the fundamental issue here, everyone, is two principal things. Number one is that home buyers are still boycotting the housing market. They cannot afford homes. Prices are still really, really expensive, and mortgage rates are still near 7%. So the demand is still down. But the demand is down now while the inventory and supply is skyrocketing. And that's a combination that is now starting to resemble what we saw in 2006, 2007, right before that last housing downturn. In particular, folks, I want to walk you through what's going on with D.R. Horton and what they just reported, because it's a huge deal and you need to understand the data behind it. So they're saying that we had lower revenue this year. They're forecasting lower revenue in the future, but the real reason why is sales orders. Their sales order volume has plummeted over the last year by 15%. So they had 15% fewer sales orders in the first quarter of 2025 compared to the first quarter of 2024. But this was especially true in two regions, the Southeast and the Southwest, where sales declined by 20 to 25% year over year. And a 20 to 25% decline in sales is huge. That is absolutely massive and is telling you that there's something going on in this market. And I know a lot of people out there are still resistant to the idea that there's a housing downturn. You know, I talk to people here in Florida, I look at people in the comments section on YouTube and Instagram, and a lot of people still say, hey Nick, there's no housing downturn. Prices are still expensive. And they think that values are going to keep going up in the future. But the more that we see these reports from companies like D.R. Horton, and the more that we see the data come in showing declining values, the more you can feel confident as a home buyer and investor that things are going to continue to get cheaper and more affordable for you as the year goes on. And I just want to spend some time on this map, which measures home price declines month over month from February to March. So this is data from Zillow, available on Reventure app, which shows the seasonally adjusted change in values from February to March 2025. And if your state's in blue, that means values dropped. And what's alarming here, everyone, is that values dropped in about half the states in the US. In total, it was 24 states where values declined. You can see Colorado had the biggest monthly decline. I've been ringing the alarm bell on Colorado now for the last month or two. We're now starting to see the values drop. Interestingly, California had the second largest decline month over month.
The U.S. economy is so bad right now that there is a laundry list of stores and retailers that are closing stores this year. Dollar Tree is closing 600 stores this year. CVS Pharmacy is closing 900 stores this year. Walgreens is closing 150 stores this year. Outback Steakhouse has already closed 40 of its restaurants and is expecting to close another 60. UPS is expected to cut 12,000 jobs in 2024. Citigroup is expected to cut over 20,000 jobs this year. eBay is laying off 1,000 people this year, as well as Microsoft, who is laying off over 1,900 people. Even Apple is closing 400 of its retail locations. Regal Cinema Movie Theaters is closing 429 of its locations in 2024. Kroger's, the grocery store, is closing 413 locations this year. Foot Locker is expected to close up to 400 of its locations this year. And the list just goes on and on and on. I mean, this video could literally be 10 minutes long. And I just really don't know how to quantify all of this information. Like, what does this mean for the U.S. economy?
Everlane is at serious risk of filing for bankruptcy in 2025. The brand has a PACE score of 1, which represents a 10 to 50% chance of filing for bankruptcy in the next 12 months. Everlane's PACE score is based on past payment behavior and U.S. federal tax liens. The female clothing brand carries higher than average balances and has been making some payments late. Other retailers that are also at high risk of bankruptcy include Glossier, JP Outfitters, Lunia, Madison Reed, PacSun, and Untuckit. While more than 30 noteworthy retailers are listed with a bankruptcy chance between 6.34% to 50% in the next 12 months, most are in the consumer discretionary category. This group of retailers was already under the most stress in 2024. The new list indicates that trend should continue as more consumers pull back on discretionary purchases and prioritize essential items after years of high inflation. For more daily business videos, make sure to follow.
So this is funny. The federal government just announced that Americans are going to be broke by October. And no, it's not that the federal government is going to be broke by October. I mean, they already have $30 trillion in debt. They're saying that Americans are going to have all their savings depleted by this upcoming October. Now, I want to share something I did to help avoid this, but first, it's important to understand why this is the case. Let's start with what my followers already know. Home affordability is at an all-time low. This is because interest rates are higher, but housing prices are not coming down. Not to mention that rental prices are also at an all-time high. When it comes to inflation, as you can see right here, it's anywhere between 18 to 29% since 2020, and that means gas, food, and essential products are going through the roof. But we all know this has been happening, so what's changed? Well, now that stimulus is really no longer a thing, Americans are taking on more credit card debt in order to pay for all their expenses, as you can see in this article. And the cherry on top of the cake is that student loan repayments are resuming. So what's happening to so many people in society is they have to take on more credit card debt in order to function as a family. But that very credit card debt is going to continue to drown them into the future until there's no return. Luckily, I have a solution. If you found yourself taking on debt, you need to do two things. The first is you need to go find a new job because your current job is not paying enough. If you can't find a new job, get another one. You're going to have to sacrifice for the time being in order to make it through this bad period of time. The second thing is more practical. What you can do is a credit card transfer. If you have a large balance on one credit card that has an interest rate, you can transfer it to another credit card with a lower or no interest rate. And this will help you save thousands of dollars a year, helping you breathe a little bit more. Oh yeah, as a PS, also apply for the SAVE Student Loan Relief Program. This will help you minimize your student loan payments, which could also give you some breathing room. I know a lot of people are going through tough times, so I am going to continue to provide information that will help you.
I went bankrupt. I lost my restaurant and something else I didn't expect. I spent 14 years building a restaurant. It was called Pizza Company. We served the lunch crowd, mostly office workers. And then COVID hit. At first I thought we'd bounce back, but our lunch business just never came back. More and more people were working from home and our core customers were gone. I tried everything. Eventually I had to let it go. I went bankrupt. What I didn't expect was how much of my identity was tied to that place. I didn't just lose income, I lost my life. I felt like a failure. Now I drive Uber in Las Vegas, but I'm rebuilding. I'm learning affiliate marketing from scratch. I'm filming these videos every day. I'm building a funnel, and yeah, some days I question everything. But here's what I found. I still have that same work ethic, the grit I learned growing up on a farm in Arkansas. It's still there. So if you lost something, your job, your business, your confidence, you haven't lost your ability to rebuild. Follow me if you're on your second or third chapter. We're doing this together.
Hey, Fave Fams. I've had a lot of things happen. I've lost jobs, clients. I've lost relationships. I've had different things happen to me. And even though those things happen, I chose to believe that I will not be stuck in a situation that is not ideal for me, that I will have those days, that I will smile again, that I will have income again, that I will be abundant again. And so my challenge for you today is to not necessarily focus on what people say or what you see, but what you believe. And if what you believe is not positive, then work on changing that. I know what people are saying. I know what the sound bites are. I know who's saying what's happening and what's the predictions of the future, but not about what happens. It's about what you choose to believe.
Will we have a recession in 2025? So 2025 is the soft launch. The real recession hits 2026. See you there.
In the event that you have the luxury of not being able to keep up with the state of the American economy, I apologize in advance, but I gotta be the one to put you on. If you want to remain ignorant, by all means scroll. But after this portion of the video, it's all facts, baby. All facts. All right, getting straight into it. We're going to be discussing the recession indicators as of August 2025. All right, and the information that I'm going to be giving to you is coming from the Washington Post. The name of the article is Long-Term Unemployment at Post-Pandemic High, Straining Workers and Economy. So I took a decent amount of notes from this article, so excuse me in advance, apologies in advance if I'm looking down a lot, but let's just get straight into it, right? So as of August 2025, 1 out of every 4 worker in the United States is unemployed and has been unemployed for at least half a year, right? This is a number that economists say is only seen during periods of economic turmoil. The first indication is employers have frozen hiring because of all of these tariffs that are being imposed by the Trump administration, as well as these policies that are crippling businesses, American businesses. They have frozen hiring. They're trying to wait everything out. They're trying to see the final effects of all of these tariffs and these policies. The second indication is layoffs are rising. Weekly claims for unemployment benefits or insurance has reached its highest level since October 2021. All right. The third indicator is 1.9 million Americans have been unemployed for at least 27 weeks, right? This is the first time in 4 years that there are more unemployed people in the United States than there are jobs. Now, this is the 5th recession indication. The unemployment rate has exceeded 25%. It is officially at 25.7%. Now, this has only happened 3 times since 1950, and it has always happened after a recession. After, not before. The first time that this happened was for 1 month, June 1983, after an inflation-fueled recession. The second time was for an 8-year stretch following the 2009 Great Recession. And the third time was for 1.5 years after the COVID-19 pandemic. All right? And now we're facing that again. Just to make it very clear, those of you who voted for this man to be elected, for him to be in office, you voted for an administration that has not only been imposing policies that has been crippling American businesses, but tariffs that have been crippling the American economy, to the point where there has not only been massive layoffs, but these American companies that are either struggling to keep their doors open or are so money hungry that where they want to keep their pockets full have frozen hiring. Okay, they have frozen hiring. For there to be more unemployed people than there are jobs available in this country, that says a lot. That's absolutely alarming. But remember, y'all voted for this. Y'all voted for this. All you red states, all you red people, all you MAGA people, y'all voted for this. Now let me introduce another issue with all of this, right? Studies have found that workers who are unemployed long-term are less likely to find jobs than others, right? Compared to others. And it's not because they don't want to find a job, okay? But understand, once you've become unemployed long-term, you start to lose connections. You start to lose contact. Not only that, your skill set starts to be less valued, not because you haven't put in the work, because you haven't been working. So the growing field, and understand most fields are growing with each season, you're losing touch. You're not there. You're not present. So you're not able to keep up with the times. So when you are applying for jobs and they're asking for certain skill sets, you don't have it available because you don't have the experience. And God help you. God be with you if you are a younger worker or a recent graduate, a recent high school graduate or a recent college graduate, because you're going to have it harder than anybody else. You have it harder than anybody else. Considering just for entry-level jobs, they want you to have a minimum of 3 years experience. Good luck. Now I'm going to share with you some of the testimonies that have been submitted to this article that has been published by the Washington Post, okay? This is the first one. I have 15 plus years in IT. I thought I should be able to step in any job, said Steve Beal, 47 years old, who has been unemployed since March 2024. When he was laid off from a 6-figure job at Best Buy's corporate office in Minnesota. But so far, I've applied to at least 300 jobs, and it's all rejections. Even with referrals, networking, resume services, I haven't gotten anywhere. This is the next submission. Felicia Enriquez, a paralegal in Los Angeles, lost her job in July 2024. In the 14 months since, she's applied to hundreds of openings without any success. Local government jobs have dried up. Makes sense considering all of these federal layoffs. And even temp agencies are coming up empty, she said. Her unemployment benefits, $400 a week, ran out in February, and she's 6 months behind rent. So far, Enriquez's landlord has been understanding, but she worries about what will happen to her and her 16-year-old daughter when that goodwill runs out. Already, she's relying on food stamps to buy groceries. She says it's getting harder the longer it gets. That's the vicious part. At the beginning, when you lose your job, you have money saved up, you have unemployment, things are okay. But when that runs out, then you really have to worry. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, the unemployment rate isn't skyrocketing. It isn't jumping to crazy numbers. However, the job market has frozen. It has completely frozen. It's at a standstill. It's stagnant, which is just as worse as if the unemployment rate was skyrocketing, because nobody's getting hired. If nobody's getting hired, no income is being made. It's not being generated. You understand? And we have an administration that's over here more worried about paying tribute to one individual than actually fixing the fucking state of the American economy. The American economy that's in the state that it's in because of all of these fucking policies and these tariffs. And that concludes your update on the state of the American economy as of August 2025. Do what you will with that information. and why I'm just now noticing that I went throughout this entire video without posting not one screenshot or any of my sources. So here is the screenshot of the head of the article. I don't know why the picture's not shrunken the way that I did, but fuck it, we ball. Anyway, you can see the title up top, so you can go and check for yourself. You could go and fact check for yourself, but the article is found on the Washington Post. Yeah.
Last night, I started off by researching Hooters getting bankrupted by private equity and ended up uncovering the next 2008 level economic collapse. And they're hiding the bubble inside a private equity black box that makes it almost impossible to see what they're doing. Almost. This time, they're not going to collapse the banks and make it too big to fail. They're going to bankrupt the entire American pension system. I'm almost too afraid to make this video, but it has to be done, so let's get into it. In 2008, investors and bankers were able to crash the world's economy by engaging in risky, unethical bets and investments, and they did it right out in the open. They've learned, and this time they're doing it again. Bigger investments, bigger risks, same playbook, but they're doing it behind the smokescreen of private equity in bigger numbers. They're creating a bigger bubble than before, and it's not somewhere down the road. It's here, and it's about to pop. You see, for the last month, I've been trying to figure out why these companies that private equity had acquired were failing even though they were still succeeding. Joann's, 97% of their stores are still profitable, and yet they're still bankrupt. But they weren't bankrupt a year ago, and they still had the debt that private equity had stacked on them a year ago. So I wanted to know what changed. The same thing with Hooters. The same thing with... Now, in 2024, private equity bankrupted 110 businesses. And that was almost double their previous record. There had been huge increases in the amount of bankruptcies each year over the past 3 years. But I didn't know what had changed because private equity had held many of these businesses for several years and they were still succeeding. Until I got my hands on an economic report and an article and found a term that nobody could explain to me. The term was back floating rate loans. I didn't know what that meant, and no article would explain it to me. So I had to go and do research in the financial prospectuses of a bunch of financial investment firms. Guys, in the last few years, private equity has taken out $3.8 trillion in adjustable rate loans. These are adjustable rate loans. These private equity firms took out adjustable rate loans. And so for the last 3 years, as our interest rates have gone up, every 30 to 60 days, the money due on the loans they stacked on top of these companies has gone up every 30 to 60 days. That's why these successful companies that private equity had acquired are suddenly bankrupt, even though they're still making money. They're bankrupt because they're paying adjustable rate loans. But it doesn't stop there. It gets so much worse because my next question is, why are the banks willing to give these risky loans to these private equity firms knowing it's going to cause them to fail? And the answer is because the banks aren't going to keep them on their books. The banks are immediately repackaging these adjustable rate loans as something called CLOs, right? Which are then packaged and sold off to our pension funds as really great debt. And they tell them that it's a diversified portfolio. Are you hearing The Big Short in real time? Literally, all of these companies are getting bankrupted in greater and greater numbers. And all of this debt is adjustable rate. And all of the bankruptcies are skyrocketing in this direction. And now, if you look at this graph, you can see that aside from 2020, which is obviously an anomaly, right now, private equity, that's the yellow section, has double the highest number of bankruptcies they'd ever had prior to last year. And that number is climbing this year, $3.8 trillion. $3.8 trillion in this debt, okay? I want you to look back to 2008. Do you want to know how many risky adjustable rate mortgages there were? $1.1 trillion. Do you want to know how many subprime but not quite as bad loans there were? $1.3 trillion. That was just in housing. In the $3.8 trillion held by private equity, they own the largest shares of the home ownership market in the United States, but they also own the daycares. They own the veterinary clinics. They own the pet stores. They own the nursing homes. They own the emergency rooms. They own the doctor's offices, the orthodontists. They own the builders. They own the HVAC companies. This isn't just housing. It's going to touch every single industry around us. And that is why, if this were a free market and private equity had not exploitatively gotten involved, if we had a free market and we could see what they were doing, these companies would be succeeding. If this were actually a free market, these companies would be succeeding. Joann's has 97% of their stores profitable. That is an astronomical number. 97% of a retail store is profitable, and they are failing, and they are closing every store, and it is further consolidating an already consolidated environment. And now there are thousands and thousands of employees that will not have jobs. And there are thousands of other businesses that are going through the exact same thing right now. And why? Because they know we will never allow the banks to be bailed out again. We would literally riot in the streets. But we're definitely going to allow them to bail out the pensions because that's our grandparents. That's our parents. That's the working class. They know that this will get bailed out. And because there's no regulatory authority, there are no laws stopping private equity from doing whatever they want, they know they can get away with it. And we can't do anything to stop them. The most important thing you need to understand is this wasn't done by accident. This was done by blatant, intentional greed. The private equity firms wanted the cheapest debt they could get, and they believed arrogantly that the debt would stay cheap forever. They had 0% interest rate loans for ages. And so they took on these adjustable rate notes thinking what? They could keep refinancing forever out of it. It was arrogant. But it also meant that they got to collect bigger fees because they were taking risky debt that cost less. The bankers were happy to give them because they got higher fees on offering bad debt. They were going to get paid no matter what. At the same time, the private equity firms mandated in their contracts with these companies they acquired that they were advisors and that they were a management company. So they also get paid that way. And then they sold the land out from under these companies and all their assets and made themselves whole before any of this even began. They're already cash positive. The banks knew they wouldn't be held accountable because they were going to bundle it up and pass it off to the pensions. And even the pensions were reckless because they're buying these mechanisms because when you purchase into private equity, when you purchase private equity debt as a pension, you get to put on your books, especially if you have an underfunded pension, the projected gains for 10 years, which means for 10 years, it looks like that pension is more shored up than it is. And at the end of that 10 years, when it's time for that fund to close out, suddenly then all of the bad debt comes crashing down on the pension. But at that point, there's a new leader on the pension fund and they've kicked the can down the road. So even they were reckless. But at the bottom of all of this is the bankrupting of the fabric of our society. We are losing our businesses. We are losing our doctors. We are losing our orthodontists. We are losing our nursing homes. We are losing our funeral homes. And one by one, they're going to fall under the weight of this really horrible adjustable rate debt. And nobody is talking about it. I could only find 2 articles in very obscure financial magazines that even talk about these back floating rate loans. I have never been more terrified. And I talk about private equity a lot. I have a lot to say. But right now, all I want to do is get someone to pay attention that can make a difference in this because we have a problem. We're not without any hope at all. Right now, private equity is only allowed to be this exploitative because they exist under something called the carried interest loophole, something that multiple Congresses have tried to close, but private equity continues to bribe politicians to fail to actually achieve. Trump, 3 weeks ago, said he wanted to close the carried interest loophole. I thought he was doing it as a fundraising maneuver. But he's doubled down on it repeatedly. If we can make enough noise about this, maybe we can get him to actually see it through and end private equity's stranglehold on our population. There's so much more that we have to go through, so this is going to be a multi-part series. But if you're new here, my name is Tiffany. We work together to fight private equity and save small businesses in our community, and it's going to take every single one of us to do so. So do all the things and stick around. I'm so glad you're here.
Breaking, Claire's is getting bought by private equity. Claire's went bankrupt earlier this year, and it announced it would be closing 700 stores. Claire's had been looking for a buyer, but nobody wanted it until after it filed for bankruptcy. Private equity firm Ames Watson is offering $140 million for Claire's 1,400 stores. Now, if you're keeping track, that is $100,000 per store. Obviously, Claire's is desperate and had no choice but to accept the offer because they weren't getting many. Now, because Claire's is in bankruptcy, this offer is subject to court approval. but it seems pretty likely that the court will approve. Otherwise, Claire's will be totally gone in a matter of months. Now, people were already upset with Claire's because they felt it was too expensive. What is going to happen should private equity become the main owner? Likely they're going to be cutting costs left and right, and the experience will likely be even worse than before. Claire's, this is something that you should have avoided by running your business better. To Claire's executives for running the business into the ground and forcing it to have to sell out to private equity. You just made the DP List, a podcast about dumb, desperate, diabolical business decisions.
If millions of families are going into debt just to eat, what does that say about the true health of the U.S. economy? A new survey shows that about a quarter of Americans are using buy now, pay later apps like Klarna, Affirm, and Afterpay just to buy groceries. We are not talking about sneakers and vacations. We're talking about milk, eggs, and pasta on a payment plan. And that number is climbing fast, which means more and more people literally can't afford food up front anymore.
And this is just a sign of how bad the economy is. We talk about what people can and can't afford, the groceries, the credit card, the rent, all that stuff, but we're not talking about the underlying issue. And one of those underlying issues is the job market here in the United States. If you didn't hear last month in August, back to July, there was a jobs report reporting a certain amount of jobs. I don't remember the number, hundreds of thousands, and it got adjusted all the way down to like some really stupid low number that they had not got it right, and it was incorrect with the amount of jobs that were created, and the actual amount of jobs that were created was basically nothing, and that caused, in addition, that caused the inflation to go up even more, and it was just a huge, huge problem, because when you're not making jobs, people aren't working, there aren't new jobs, new streams of income, and the inflation's going up, you've got less money coming into people and more money going out of their pockets. You know how that works, right? Listen to her talk about this as an ending here to this video I'm talking about today.
I'm going to talk today about how the job market in America is crashing. In August, only 22,000 jobs were created. There's about 340 million people here in the United States. 22,000 jobs is virtually nothing for a country this size. Meanwhile, unemployment has gone up to 4.3%, and that's not even with the revisions. Once those are done, it's probably going to be worse than that. So the job growth has slowed down practically across all industries, and this is the beginning of what an economic breakdown looks like.
Did you know 70% of Americans don't even have $1,000 in their savings account? Well, why does that matter? It matters because if you don't have $1,000 in your savings account, then you need to budget your money better. The expenses should be last. That means you're living above your means.
Do you guys know what the people are not telling you about? We're in a recession. We're in a recession, and I think a lot of people aren't realizing that because the media has not come forward to tell us that we are in a recession. I'm here to let you guys know that we are in a recession. The reason why I feel like people need to know and understand that we're in a recession is because we got to start scaling back. It's not normal to continue doing the things that we were doing pre-COVID, even during COVID when they started like pumping things into the society, to the economy. It's not correct. Like, we got to scale back on them expenses because it's about to backfire on us in the next year. Like, people are still doing the same thing that we were doing a year or two ago and not realizing that we are in a recession. Like, be honest and be real with yourselves. Like, even me, I'm telling people, like, I'm tightening up on all my finances. I'm calling the bill collectors. I'm calling the cellular line people negotiating my bills. Y'all got to give me every single dollar because it has to make sense. The job economy, terrible. It's shitty. Like, that is an indicator that we are in a recession. People are losing their jobs. They think it's going to be easy to get back a job again, and they're still doing the same things, keeping up with the expensive hair, buying the nails, this and this and that. I'm telling y'all, it's finna backfire. Cut back on them finances, okay? Cut back on them finances because it's about to be bloody out here in the next couple of months to a year.
It should be criminal how low the pay has gotten due to mass layoffs. The fact that like legacy big media companies are offering $50K for jobs that would have paid that much 10 years ago. In New York, almost every job I'm getting an interview for is like $17 an hour. It's like project manager roles. This is insane. It should be criminal.
Breaking, the Fed has just basically admitted that we're experiencing stagflation. They all but said it when they lowered interest rates a few hours ago. Remember, for stagflation, you need two parts, stagnation and inflation. And for the stagnation side, the Fed said that economic growth has slowed in the first half of this year, as well as job gains. Also, unemployment is rising. Now, as for the inflation part, the Fed said that, quote, inflation has moved up and remains somewhat elevated. So there you have it, stagnation and elevated inflation, which means this economy is experiencing stagflation, and you have it from the Federal Reserve itself. The rate cut will be a welcome move for markets and for a lot of people who are looking to get lower interest rate loans. But the news about why the Fed is having to move interest rates down is not going to be welcome to a lot of people, particularly the ones who kept trying to convince everyone that the economy was doing well, and people who were saying that it was not doing well were just making things up. And to all the people who said that, you just make the D3 list, a podcast about dumb, desperate, and diabolical business decisions.
Now, here's the scary part. Delinquency is rising fastest outside of mortgages. People usually protect the roof over their head until the very end, right? It's typically the last debt that people will go delinquent on. So what do they let slide before they stop paying their mortgage? Typically credit cards, auto loans, unsecured lines of credit. And according to the report, credit card delinquency is now 3.8%, auto loans around 1.1%, while mortgages are still around 0.22%.
Just kind of doubling down on this video that I put out yesterday, but I just looked it up. 34% of Americans right now have $0 in savings. Not can't afford $1,000 without credit, $0 in savings. Most, actually I'm not going to say most, but a lot of people are negative because they have so much debt, and not any like good debt that is going to make them money. No assets, all liabilities, no, like 34%. Think about it. If you line 3 people up, one of them has $0 in savings, statistically speaking. Does that not just like ring the alarm bell that people really like? We don't need the Starbucks, we don't need the fucking McDonald's. Like, just please just save your money.
America is heading into a major recession. I've spent the last 3 days talking to my contacts all over the world, including my contacts from Washington when I worked in the Bush administration years ago. And I have some friends at Social Security, pretty high up in Social Security administration, and there's a lot of concerns what's going on with them. People are going to start missing checks, Social Security checks. So I just wanted to put this out as a warning to my friends, especially my entrepreneurial friends, my younger friends around the world that are not big on following economic trends and what's going on around the world and the impact it has on us financially. I just want to say, you're not going to hear this probably from the government, because consumer spending is what controls 70% of the economy. And if the government comes out and warns against recession, more people will tighten up and consumer confidence goes down, which actually can be a major cause of the recession. So my point is this: please hold on to your money. I'll tell you what rich people are doing all over the country.
Some bad news for the economy. We are now seeing credit card delinquencies at record highs when you look at smaller lending institutions. We are surpassed the level of the dot-com bubble in the year 2000 and the financial crisis in 2008. In fact, we are pretty significantly past these levels. So what does this mean? Well, potentially consumer spending is going to come to a halt, or at least drop pretty substantially. Generally speaking, if people are not paying back their credit card debt, it's because their savings are also at all-time lows. When you have a 28% or 30% interest loan, typically you want to pay that off as soon as possible. But if people are delinquent, meaning they are not paying their credit card in 30 days or more, that means they are probably running very low on savings. When we look at larger banks like Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, we are not yet seeing record levels of credit card delinquencies, but looking at the smaller lending institutions, we are at pretty scary levels. We have known for quite some time that credit card debt has been soaring over the last year or so, and personal savings has been at record lows. But now we are officially seeing credit card delinquencies pick up pretty drastically. But credit card debt delinquencies are obviously not an indication that the economy is about to collapse. What we really need to keep an eye out for is unemployment rate. If we start to see the unemployment going over 5%, in California it's already over 5%, but nationwide we're roughly at 4%, so we're still at pretty low levels. But this can quickly spiral out of control if companies decide that all of a sudden consumers are no longer spending, which is what credit card delinquencies can indicate. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and follow me for more.
Microsoft has now canceled the Xbox games after it's laid off more than 15,000 people in the last 2 months. Now, in May, they laid off 6,000 people. And just yesterday here, at the start of July, they laid off another 9,000. Now, what did these people get for, some of them, 10, 15 plus years of service in this? They got a 60-day paid severance. So 2 months in a job market that it traditionally takes 4 to 5 months to get a new job in after working at this employer for 10 to 15 years. And if this does not show you and tell you that you always need to be leveling up your skills, side hustling, that you need to be building your personal brand, that you need to be building your network on LinkedIn, that you need to be going to webinars and conferences in order to make connections in your industry, so that if one company starts to act stupid, you can bounce over to another company that has its stuff together. Now, Microsoft has about
So Trump came out a few hours ago and said that Americans are going to suffer financially for at least 2 years while his tariff strategy takes place. Okay, which means millions of people are about to lose their jobs, they're about to lose their homes, they're going to lose everything they have, kids are going to be food insecure. We are looking at an economic tsunami, okay? There's only one of two scenarios in which we can turn this around. One is Trump is lying about the tariffs. If he's lying and he backs down the tariffs, that could help. Okay, he lies every day, so that wouldn't be surprising. But if he's not lying and he keeps these tariffs in place, the only thing we can do is march in the streets and fight back. Call your local representatives. Do whatever you can. Show up at town halls, okay, and complain before he takes every single thing you have. Don't think he'll lose a minute of sleep over it. He's a sociopath. He doesn't feel your pain. He doesn't care about you. Believe me. Even if you're MAGA, he doesn't care about you. I know you think he does, but he doesn't. It's time now, guys, to take control. This is the only chance we're going to have, and we're running out of time.
Well, you knew it was only a matter of time before one of the big corporates tried to figure out how they could lay off a bunch of people, mass layoffs without severance. And it appears Meta's going to be the one that tests this. They announced layoffs of up to 5% of their workforce. I think that's close to 4,000 employees. And they're using performance reviews in order to decide who they're letting go. Now, there's mixed signals. So if you're in Meta and you've got one of these severance packages, let me know. But I heard it's going to be minimal compared to what a traditional layoff package is. So maybe they're trying to skirt around the legal issue. Again, this just brings it into call, are they phantom pips? Are these folks at a performance review after 20 years without any issues? They got one performance review and now they've been terminated. To me, this sounds like a way to turn over the folks they want out of the organization subjectively. You know, could it be age related? Could it be cost related? I would bet almost everything I have that it's going to be cost related.
Auto loan delinquency rates are officially at an all-time high. We are now at 6.6%. For reference, this is the 2008 financial crisis, and this is the dot-com bubble. Now, obviously, this is the subprime borrowers. Prime borrowers are still here at 0.4%, but during the financial crisis, it only got to 1% delinquency rate. Interestingly, auto loan debt recently surpassed student loan debt as the second largest consumer debt category in the US, trailing behind mortgages. Below here, you can see Americans owed a record $1.6 trillion in auto loan debt at the end of 2024, up 20% since 2020. Now, I'm not saying we're going to enter a crisis just because car payments aren't being made, but the point of this video is to kind of point out that there are always times in history where consumers overextend themselves and eventually default on a lot of that debt that they shouldn't have taken on in the first place. And like I've been saying for the past 6 to 12 months, if you're going to buy a house right now, just make sure that you are happy with that monthly payment, particularly for low down payment individuals. You don't want to get yourself into a situation where you're underwater on your mortgage, you can't refinance when rates do eventually drop. Just be a little cautious. Now, if you're 20% down, 30, 40, 50% down, you don't really have anything to worry about. We're not going to have a housing crash just because people aren't making their car payments, but we probably will go back to a neutral market. So it's just things to be aware of. that are shaking out in the economy right now? Let me know your thoughts in the comments and follow me for more.
Chipotle is filing for bankruptcy and all y'all acting surprised. So the question is, do y'all want me to act surprised with y'all or y'all want me to give y'all the real? Because there's no way that you thought that them little bowls that y'all be buying is the reason why Chipotle is going to stay afloat. Are you guys vigilant? Do you guys pay attention? I mean, there's a lady on TikTok begging people to watch her videos, begging people to get in that rabbit hole with her. She's discovered something that piqued my interest, but me, I don't like to get into conspiracy. I don't like to get myself into things that I can't control. So I kind of watch from the sidelines. But now that companies that look profitable are going bankrupt, it begs the question, should I be the one to put y'all on to what's really going on in layman's terms? According to her research and everything she was able to dig up, private equity is the one to blame for all these companies going bankrupt. In short, they invest into these companies, then they take out these loans. They aren't just any loans, they're adjustable rate loans. What that means is that the interest is favorable in the beginning, right? But in 3 to 5 years, that interest changes and it goes up. It gets inflated to something that's uncontrollable, real nasty. When they take out these loans, all they do is buy more companies, right? They're private equity. That's what they do. They buy more companies, build them up, rinse and repeat. But what's happening then is that these companies can't pay the loans because the interest is so high. So you look at companies like Joann Fabrics, for example, right, where 97% of the stores were profitable. They still had to file bankruptcy because they couldn't keep up with the loan payments. They owed too much money. Their interest was through the roof. Some say that's what's going to cause the second collapse of our economy. We're going to be in a recession due to that. I say y'all mind the business that pay me and just prepare for what's coming. Hold a lot of cash because the storm is coming.
Hey everybody, it's Will. I wanted to let you know that I appeared on News Nation this morning to talk about the overwhelming increase in farmer bankruptcies this year in the United States of America. Already this year, since President Trump took office, we've had more farmer bankruptcies under Section 12 than we had in the entire year in 2024. This is being caused by a lot of the policies that President Trump passed, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to these bankruptcies. Now, a lot of you may not know that Chapter 12 bankruptcy was actually originally created for farmers and fishermen in order for them to reorganize debt when they ran into difficult financial times. That's happening a lot lately due to very specific policies on the part of the president. First, you have the tariffs. The tariffs have been on again and off again for quite some time. I just read this morning and it blew my mind that there have been over 132 different iterations of the Trump tariff policy that's been put out there to the American public and the rest of the world since his inception when he first came into office. Think about that. 130 plus versions of the tariff plan for this country. You ask yourself the question, how can any other country or how can any commodity organization in the United States of America plan around that lack of planning? It's very, very difficult to do. It's caused other countries to throw tariffs onto the United States of America, which have cost us overseas markets, not only in row crops, but also in beef. And the problem is getting worse and worse. The second issue that we face in row cropping is that the break-even price right now for a commodity like corn is around $4 a bushel. And that price of corn has been dipping down below and a little bit above that per bushel price needed to break even for quite some time now. As a matter of fact, just a few weeks ago, the price of corn was somewhere around $3.80 a bushel, which was below break even. Right now, it's anywhere from $4.05 to $4.25, depending on how far you look out to December. But the bottom line is this. There aren't going to be massive profits on row crops this year due to the president's tariff policies, leading to a reduction in the amount of markets out there for commodities like corn, soybeans, etc. And this, again, is adding pressures to farmers, especially row crop farmers, that depend on credit in order to do their farming every year. The other issue driving up cost is the increased energy cost in this country. Now, if you haven't done so, I'm going to encourage you to go over to the page of my good friend, Mr. Global, and look at some of his latest work on energy costs and energy prices. He's made a prediction which looks like it's going to become true that's really frightening. And that is in the very near future, energy prices, your utility bill that you pay at your home or on your farm could be greater than the cost of your mortgage. And that's really, really a frightening scenario for farmers across the country. As these costs increase and as markets disappear and our ability to sell our commodities around the world decrease, it's setting up a perfect storm for bankruptcies in this country. The final thing I want to tell you is that it's no different when a farmer files for Chapter 12 reorganization than it is if a small business does it or an individual does it. The bottom line is a farmer comes out of that bankruptcy with destroyed or credit that's been diminished quite a bit. And in the farming industry, just like with many small businesses and larger businesses, where you need credit to operate, to buy the inputs that you need to produce the commodities that you're later going to sell, the difference between good credit and bad credit can mean several points in interest rates and the increased amount of money that you've got to put down at the beginning or the amount you have to collateralize in order to get a loan. This could mean you have to put more and more acreage up or more and more equipment up just to get the operating capital that you need to put crops in the ground or to put cattle in the field. So this is a really dark cloud that's building over agriculture right now as a direct result of of President Trump's agricultural policies. The other thing I want to tell you, and we can't forget this because I know that a lot of you who follow me and who are going to see this video are mental health advocates as well. Anytime we see a significant increase in farmer bankruptcies like we're seeing right now, we also see a significant increase in farmer unalivings. As the grandson of someone who went down that path, I can tell you that it impacts families for years and years to come. Anyway, that's the breakdown. That's what I shared on News Nation today. I hope you'll go check out the clip. And if you want to change policy in America, get better rural policy, better policy for agriculture, education, and healthcare, join us here on the Back 40 to fight the good fight. Go to our website, the Back 40 Official, all spelled out.com. Join to get our newsletter and join to get updated information. We're going to events all over the country. We've been to Missouri. We've been to Texas. We've been to Illinois. We've been to Kansas. We've been to Oklahoma. We've been to Arkansas, and we've been to Iowa. And we've got requests from all over the country. We're going to be up near St. Louis just later this week on Saturday. We're going to be in Perry, Oklahoma, and speaking to students at Oklahoma State University in August. It's really a great place to be if you want to impact change in rural America. And I'm asking you today to take that leap of faith and step out there and join. Have a great day, everybody.